sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be free from diseases. May all see only goodness everywhere. May no one be subject to suffering. May there be peace everywhere by the grace of God. This is an ancient prayer, and it is in an ancient language which is Sanskrit, which is the most ancient living language of the world. That question was raised when I was visiting on invitation Honolulu every year. I did that for a few years, and that's when I got to know some professors of the University of Hawaii. And one of them was Dr. Maurer. He was the professor of Sanskrit. And as I knew some Sanskrit, he would like to come and have lunch with me every day almost, and would talk about Sanskrit. Then one day I told him, Dr. Maurer, Sanskrit has the largest vocabulary among all ancient languages. Then he said, no, Swami, I think it is Latin which has more. I said, that's so. I thought that Sanskrit was had the largest vocabulary. Then the following year, when I visited Honolulu, then Dr. Maurer said to me, Swami, you are right. Because Sanskrit has the largest vocabulary. I have found out. For everything in Sanskrit, there are several words. For example, arm or hand. This, in English, we have only these two words, but in Sanskrit, pani and hasta and all these things are there. For everything there are several words in Sanskrit. So the subject of my talk this evening is guna. It is a Sanskrit word. Let us try to find out what this word means in Sanskrit. Well, the common meaning of the word guna is quality. But then the word guna means something else also. Guna means also a rope or a string. And Hinduism is the only religion which accommodates questioning. No question is considered blasphemous. That's why all possible questions about religion have been asked, and their answers are also there. And there is a subject called philosophy. Philosophy starts with questioning. Why, what, and all these things. And eventually answers are given. That's why in Sanskrit there are many schools of philosophy, not just one. And this is the only religion or which is or sometimes called Hinduism, that has 6 systems of philosophy. And each of these systems is called a darshanam. Darshanam. It is seeing the truth. That is the purpose of each darshanam. So there are 6 systems of philosophy in that culture, Hindu culture, Hinduism. And what are those 6 systems? Sankhya, Purvamimamsa, and the Sankhya philosophy was founded by an ancient sage called Kapila. Then came Purvamimamsa. Then it is due to the effort of Jaimini that school was introduced. Then came Uttaramimamsa or Vedanta, and one sage Vyasa is responsible for this school. Then Yoga, that school is founded by Patanjali. And then Nyaya or logic, and the sage named Gautama was responsible for this. And then there is another system, Vaisheshika, and the sage Kanada is responsible for this. So there are 6 systems, and in Sanskrit they are called Shardarshanam. And it is the only religion which has this many systems of philosophy in it. And this evening we have chosen a subject which is the 3 Gunas, and that is something which we shall discuss from the point of view of Sankhya school. What is Sankhya school of Kapila? That question has been asked. And then Kapila answered, Samyak khyayate iti Sankhya. Something which clearly explains everything, that is Sankhya philosophy. And it has nothing to do with the word Sankhya. Sankhya means number. But interesting enough, that is in Sankhya philosophy, the number 3 is considered very important, as we can presently see. You see, according to this school of philosophy, at the beginning of the world, there were 2 entities. One was called Purusha and the other one was called Prakriti. Purusha was ordinarily means the male, and Prakriti, one of the meanings of that word Prakriti is a female. So at the beginning of creation, there was Purusha, and Purusha is of the nature of consciousness, and Prakriti is unconscious matter. Prakriti is matter. So why is it considered female? Because it is from Prakriti that the entire world has evolved. The idea of evolution is present. And Prakriti has evolved into this world with all its multifarious things in it. In English we can call Purusha consciousness, and Prakriti is mother nature. Because it is Prakriti which has evolved into this entire world. Just as the mother gives birth to children, so also Prakriti has evolved as the entire world with its varieties in it. So how does Prakriti or Mother Nature start changing. Because Mother Nature or Prakriti is primordial matter. It did not have any consciousness of its own. But it borrowed consciousness from Purusha, which is the source of consciousness. And then after borrowing that consciousness, it started evolving, changing. And it is very interesting that Prakriti, or Mother Nature, when it started changing, the first it evolved as Mahat, or cosmic intellect or cosmic mind. And when that mind appeared, then in that mind appeared the ego. It is true for us also. We are no other than the evolved products of Mother Nature or Prakriti. When there is a mind, there will be ego. And from ego comes ahankara, selfishness. Yes, that's how it is. And what is Prakriti like? Then this school says that Prakriti is like a huge rope. It is made of 3 relatively finer ropes. 3 finer ropes have been wound together to create Prakriti. And each of these ropes is called a guna also. And they are not exactly the same. Each one has its own characteristic. One of these strings is called sattva, the other string is called rajas, and the third one is called tama. These strings, 3 strings, have been wound together to create Prakriti or Mother Nature. And each of these strings is called a guna. And each guna has its own characteristic. So, when I speak of 3 gunas, then I speak of these 3 constituent parts of Prakriti. Without these finer strings or ropes, there would not have been a rope called Prakriti. So Prakriti is no other than the 3 gunas. And how does Prakriti evolve? So that these gunas are like 3 siblings, they always are wrestling with one another. They're always wrestling with one another. And sometimes one guna goes to the top, it wins. Then the second one also eventually will go to the top, and then the third one will go to the top. Each one wants to defeat the other 2 gunas in wrestling. That's why you see, Prakriti, which has become this entire universe, that is responsible for our creation also. We are no other than Prakriti. And we also have 3 gunas. And the gunas have different characteristics. One guna is called Satyaguna. When Satyaguna becomes preponderant in a person, then the mind of that person will become calm, very calm, quiet. And when Rajaguna becomes preponderant, then the person's mind and body will become restless. All activities will come. And then the third one is Tamaguna. When Tamaguna becomes preponderant, it causes lethargy, mental and physical lethargy. Without tamoguna, a person cannot even sleep. So these three gunas keep on changing one after another. One becomes preponderant, then the other two become subdued, then again the other one, another one becomes preponderant, and the other two become subdued. That's how it goes on. This is how we are. Our nature is that we are composed of these three gunas of Prakriti. Sometimes Satyaguna becomes preponderant, then our mind is calm and quiet and serene, fit for meditation, so to say. And then when Rajaguna becomes preponderant, then the mind is restless. It wants to keep busy doing things, or even to fight a war, this mind is needed. That restless mind. And the third one is tamas. In order to be able to sleep, one must need this guna, tamoguna. It will cause lethargy. So, it is very interesting to know these things. The action of these three gunas. And according to Sankhya school of philosophy, the first product of the evolution of Prakriti is the cosmic intellect. Or intellect, when intellect is there, then their ahankara or cosmic ego will be born. First cosmic intellect is needed, then when that intellect has been created by Prakriti, then the second product of Prakriti will come, that is ego. There cannot be any ego without the intellect. And there are three types of cosmic ego. The ego in which the Satyaguna is preponderant, that is one ego. The second one is that ego in which Rajaguna has become preponderant. And the third one is an ego where there is preponderance of lethargy or tamoguna. And from the first, that is Satyaguna, are evolved the 5 sense organs. What are those 5 sense organs? Chakshu, Karna, Nasika, Jiva, Tvak. That means the organ of sight, organ of hearing, and the organ of smell, and organ of taste, and organ of touch. These are the 5 sense organs. The 5 sense organs are evolved from what? From when Satyaguna is preponderant in the mind. And then also there are motor organs. Motor organs, what are they? Vak, Pani, Pada, Payu, Upastha. This is the organ of speech, organ with the help of which we grab things with our hands. Then that organ which helps us to move, that is our feet. And that organ which helps us to get rid of the food that we have digested, and that food which is not needed anymore, and it goes out of the body. That is that is payu. And then is upastha, and that organ with the help of which people generate other beings. Organs of generation, sexual organs, so to say. So these are all called motor organs. And other than these, there is another inner organ which is the mind. And it is said that from this ego, where when the sattva substance is preponderant, are evolved the 5 sense organs, the 5 motor organs and the mind. And from the third, that is that when the mind and body have preponderance of tamo substance, which causes lethargy. So from the third are evolved the 5 subtle physical essences of Tanmatras, they are called. Subtle substances. They are like essences. There is a flower, and the perfume of that flower is composed of that substance in flower which is present in very fine form, Tanmatras. Tanmatras of the perfume which is present in the flower creates a little cloud around that fragrant flower. Tanmatras. So also are human beings. Their minds have tanmatras. Can you experience the tanmatras? Not really, because it is so subtle. That's why it is said it is tanmatra, but that alone exists. That much one can say. Every person emits tanmatra. Human being emits tanmatras, very fine substances. These tanmatras are very important. A saint is covered by his saintly tanmatras. And if one comes within the domain of that cloud of tanmatras, then such pure tanmatras, then that person becomes benefited. We know so many, that's why it is said that holy company is beneficial. A person who is holy, his tanmatras are very fine, saintly. And then this tanmatras can influence other people also. There was a saintly Swami in our order. His name was Swami Bhaskarananda. Yeah, at that time he was the president of the Ramakrishna Order of monks. And the Queen of Nepal, her mind was very disturbed, and she had heard of Swami Bhaskarananda, and she wanted to come and offer her respects to him and seek some spiritual help. And then she came. And what happened then? Then Swami Bhaskarananda allowed the Queen of Nepal to sit in his presence in a room. There was no one else there. And he didn't talk to that queen. Then after about an hour or so, the queen came out of the room saying, "My mind has now become calm." Because she was in the presence of the holy Tanmatras of Swami Vishuddhananda, and those Tanmatras had influenced her mind. And these Tanmatras can be of 5 kinds, where there is Satyaguna is preponderant, Rajaguna is preponderant, and so on and so forth. And from the Tanmatras are evolved the 5 gross physical elements which are called Mahabhutas in Sanskrit. First is Akasha, the space element. Then comes Vayu, the air element. Then the third is Agni, that is the Tejas element. And the fourth is Up, the water element. And Shiti, or the earth element. These elements are called Mahabhutas. These elements mingled in different proportions, following certain rules of permutation and combination, and become this manifold universe. This is how it is. That's why these gunas are very important for us to know about. Because for these Tanmatras and all, the gunas are responsible. And gunas, what are the gunas? They are the constituent parts of Mother Nature. Satyaguna, Rajaguna and Tamaguna. So that's why in Hinduism it is said that everything is made of 3 gunas, because Prakriti or Mother Nature is composed of these 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. There was a Swami in our order. He was given the name Trigunaatitananda. That means one who is beyond these 3 gunas. What is beyond 3 gunas? That is that Purusha or divinity or consciousness, that is beyond the 3 gunas. The gunas exist in Prakriti, Mother Nature only. So in other words, the idea was to say that he would go beyond the grip of Mother Nature and will manifest its true nature of consciousness, which is Purusha. That Purusha is sometimes in other schools of philosophy mentioned that Satchit Anandam, that is consciousness, and that is existence itself, and that is bliss. So all these 3 gunas constitute this world in which we are, and we are no other than these 3 gunas, because we have evolved from Mother Nature, which is composed of 3 gunas, or Prakriti. So this is what we can know about the gunas. That's why in Hinduism some divinities which are considered female, they are called Trigunamayi. That means they are composed of 3 gunas. They are like Mother Nature. So these 3 gunas are very important so far as Hindu philosophy is concerned, and mainly Sankhya philosophy. It is Sankhya school of philosophy which talks about these gunas more than other schools do. We have to go beyond these gunas. And what will go beyond the gunas? This ego won't be there at that time. Beyond the gunas, there is only divinity or consciousness. So, divinity is like the ocean and the gunas are like the waves in it. Three kinds of waves. The waves are no other than the ocean. And if we can, and each wave is associated with our ego or ahankara. And if this ego is gone, then what remains is consciousness or purusha or divinity. So that's why divinity is the highest goal according to Hinduism. Let us remember that. We are all divine. Sarvam Khalidam Brahma. That is the Sanskrit expression. This is called a great sentence. And Aham Brahmasmi, I am also divinity. Brahman means divinity. And then Tattamasi, you are also Brahman. And what you consider as your soul, that is also Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. These are called great sentences in Hinduism. And these are the most important sentences. If they are saved and the rest of Hinduism is lost, then one can say that Hinduism has been saved. And if these are lost and the rest of Hinduism be there, then you say Hinduism has been lost. So it is a good idea to sometimes think of the three gunas, because we are no other than these three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Sometimes in us, sattva guna becomes preponderant, then we are calm and quiet and serene and spiritually oriented. Then sometimes rajas becomes preponderant. Then we want to be physically active, mentally active. Then we will start watching TV, keep our minds busy doing those things. Then sometimes there will be lethargies, sleep comes. We are unable to think of anything. At that time, the tamaguna has become preponderant. So we should try to create a condition in our mind when most of the time the sattva-guna will become preponderant. And that is, sattva-guna will enable us to experience divinity. Thank you so much for your patience.